this is going to be a different kind of diagram class. It's not going to be like, the bake element don't work, and where you're going to put your meter to do your voltage test, and I'm writing, and I know Brandon talked about it. I don't know if he did last Friday, but the Friday before we talked about now. I have a sealed system thing that is for our paid members. They can go on self-study and go through 5 or 6 chapters that I have online. And I'm presently writing a schematics page, which will go up for our members too, where you'll learn schematics from the very, very simple, basic, all the way up to actual use for troubleshooting and stuff like that. Today's lecture is going to be more about understanding the diagram and not troubleshooting the circuit. If you have the diagrams that I emailed, the one that was labeled range is a gas and electric stove. I was talking with Rudy here, and he asked some questions and pointed some things out, so he's already been researching it a little bit. Now, I'm going to ask you guys some questions about the diagram, because part of it is looking at it and looking for proper information. Now, hopefully you guys are able to print the diagram. I want you to look on the left hand side here, the one that has OVC-M, and I want you to look at it and tell me where do you think power comes into this stove. Just where does power come in? Anybody can speak up and answer.
This connections at the right, on the right center, the little arrows.
But what does it say? Stuart, you said something?
Is it in connector J11?
J11. Let's go zoom in on the board here a little more. J1 is here. And yes, that's black here, but I was even going, before we even get into going to the board, is where is power period coming into the whole appliance? And that's right here. Yeah, where it says power cord. And so we're talking about a stove, but how much voltage does this stove have?
120.
120. We only have black and white. We don't have a red. So again, what I'm trying to do, and we're going to look at parts too, and the diagram, and compare some things and try to identify them. But a simple thing like a power cord, if you look down here, what is this right here? I'm going to zoom in on it. What is that?
Connector to the cooktop.
Connected to the cooktop. So let's see, where's the cooktop in this diagram here?
It's not in it. It's next to it.
The cooktop is in the page on the right. So if you see these arrows here are connecting to these arrows here. That's a quick disconnect plug. So they're showing you a diagram of the oven on the left hand side and everything that goes on in the oven, and then we're looking on the right hand side here, and we're looking for everything that's on the cooktop of the stove. Okay, so that's a connector there. So I see here it says L1, neutral, and ground. That's all we really need for the cooktop to work. We need 120 volts. What's the red wire? We've got to follow it back. If you got your diagrams, follow it back. What does this red wire go to, and what does it do? I'm sorry? I can't hear you, Bobby.
Oh, I thought it was the gas. Hold on.
It's not. This is the this is the whole oven, and I think OVC means oven control module or something. But this is going to the cooktop, this red here, but it's going to here, this plug J5 on the control board.
Right.
But what do you think it's doing? Because all you see is the word gas CL/CN.
Is it like a gas regulator?
Not a gas regulator, because regulators don't have any electricity going to them. Regulators are a mechanical piece. But first of all, I want to point out something here. Again, I'm trying to break it down. We're just learning to read different things so that when we look at it again, it's now much brighter. What does it say above my arrow? I know this is a stupid question, but what does it say above my arrow right here? I'll zoom in if you can't see it. What does it say?
Broil relay.
Broil relay. Well, what does that say?
That's French.
It's Relais de Grill, which is broil relay in French. Well, you guys say, I don't care about French. And I'm not trying to get you to read French, but first of all, this CL/CN, they're the same word. The first one is English and the second one is in French. Okay? I know it's stupid, but you're like, what is CLCN? Well, forget the CN. Okay? Now let's look at the word gas, CL. What do you think CL is in an oven?
Control?
No. What does an oven do that might have something to do with CL? Clean, self-clean. Is that what you said, Bobby? Self-clean. Okay, so let's see something here. Self-clean. So right there is CL. Let's look over here something. If we look here and we got something called locking and unlocking door open, self-clean, L1 to bake is on, okay? So none of these things are on. But what I think is happening is because we're talking about a gas stove, and gas stoves get so extremely hot that they lock out the cooktop so the customer cannot cook when the oven's in the clean cycle.
Okay.
So black, white, and green is sending power and the safety ground to the main board, but this red, when there's a signal coming from here, which is probably voltage, goes into this spark module, it turns it off. And you see here, gas, CL again, optional. So the stove may or may not have that.
Right.
Okay? But that's what it is. So, like, and I was talking to Rudy. I downloaded this diagram last night. I put together the email. I uploaded it to my drive so you can get it. I sent you guys all the email. The first time I looked at this diagram was probably like 5 minutes before you guys joined. And it's not that I'm that smart. I'm good at certain things, but the thing is that I've been looking at diagrams so long, I figured out what I'm telling you right now about the gas CL right now as we're talking. I did not look prior to and read about it or something else. Now there are sometimes I have to do that, but these are things you need to identify when you're looking at a diagram. Now one of the things Rudy said was the broil element. How much voltage is the broil element getting? Let's see, I think I can trace on here. So black comes in. Okay, see so. Oh, you know what? I think I can only highlight text. But black comes in. Let me see something. For some reason, I tried to do it, and Adobe Acrobat is having a hard time right here. I apologize. Okay, let's see.
Is it conceivable that you could have a 120 source for the oven, and then in the board there would be a step-up transformer that would give 240 to an element? I mean, just theoretically.
No, they won't give 240. But look here, line 1 comes in and goes over here, and it's gonna go up. We got to go a little bit higher here into the board, okay? And the black wire right here, oops, this line right here is bringing it into the relay, And this is DLB. Does anybody know what DLB stands for and what it is?
Double line break.
Double line break is correct. What it stands for, what is it, and what does it do?
Safety device.
It
cut off the electrical current. But don't you normally see that in a like 240 thing?
Yes, you are correct. What he's saying, guys, if you're not familiar, in this case, this neutral wire runs along here,
So it's
right?
hardwired.
And the neutral is coming up to the bake element here, or let's say the broil element. I'm sorry, the broil element, and it comes here, right? But it goes through this relay. Guys, look at that drawing right where my circle is. What's wrong? The manufacturer made a mistake on the diagram. I find these all the time. What's wrong?
No connection.
Look at the convection element above it. Follow it to the right, the purple wire, and it goes into the relay. And it goes to the normally open position of the relay, and it comes out the common to orange. Now look at the broil element. Is it going into the relay? It's not connected here.
No, it's open, isn't it?
It right here, like you see, this is going to the switch. This box is nothing. It's just saying the switch is on the board. And then if you look at this relay here, they're supposed to go from here to here and go through the switch. But no, they went to the outer case of it. But look, this one went to the relay, that went to the relay. Man, whoever drew it wrong. And nobody caught it. So manufacturers make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the double line brake relay on electric stoves with 240, you have one relay, let's say like the broil relay, where it comes in, goes through the broil relay and goes out. But they usually put the broil relay on one side of the element and a double line brake relay on the other side of the element. The purpose is that when you have 240, you have two lines of power going to an element. And back in the day, you had an oven in the wall. You just took out two screws holding the element in the oven, and you pulled the element out slowly, and you could rewire it without pulling the whole oven out. You could even test it that way, but you got to be careful, because if the terminals are live, and back in the day, they only had one relay going to the element, and that relay, if it got stuck, you get electrocuted. And the other side was always connected to a line of power, and you get electrocuted. So they came up years ago with an additional relay, and all your ovens electric will have two relays on every element. But the double line brake relay, which is this one, notice that both elements have to go through it here. So if one of those stick, that double line will open up and neither element will work. So if you go to someone's house and they said the broil element's not working, could the double line brake be bad?
Yes.
How could you tell if it's a double line brake relay without even pulling out a meter?
Turn it on.
Well, you try the broil and they say the broil don't work, but you're like, oh, it could be this double line brake relay. Well, guess what? The convection wouldn't work either. And if we also followed this up here, this one and this one are not getting power, so neither one will work. If you turn it on, neither one of them work, but everything else works on the stove. You already know you got line coming in. What other switches turn on those elements? So if I turned the convection element on and the broil didn't work, I could have a problem with my broil element, right? But if I turn both of these on and neither one of them got hot, it could be my board. Just by not saying that's 100% definite, we still want to test. But I'm looking at, this double line break relay. If it goes bad, neither one of these elements work. If this one goes bad, only this one won't work. But this one will. So if neither one of them work, I'm going to look more towards the problem of the board. So it's like when you go up to a stove and you're trying to fix a problem, and one of the first things you say is, I see this is not working. What do I test first? Why do I go to this part first? Where do you come up with that process of how I'm going to attack it? And in this case, if I tried both these and didn't work, I'd look more towards the board. If one of them worked and then didn't work, I would go more towards the element. And that's what I would check first. And that's how, I'm just talking about a diagram and how I look at a diagram and how I use that to make my decision what I'm going to test and where I'm going to test. Now, if you were going to make a test, let's say Bohr element doesn't work, convection element works, where would you go for your first test? Where would you go for your first test on this unit? The Bohr element doesn't work, the convection element does. I don't know how to erase my line now. Aha. Now if you look, I said what? The Bohr element works, right? So I'm sorry, the Bohr element does not work. The convection works. So this component works here. So what you need to do, and let me pull this into another program where I can draw on it, because this tool is not allowing me to do that.
Would you look for an open by going to K3P1 and then
One second. Let me just
check resistance?
let me get this into the screen here where we could talk about it. Are you guys seeing the new program that I'm bringing up?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm bringing this diagram here. Okay. Now I can draw it a little bit better. So now we got power coming in, and I'm saying the convection works, Bohr don't. So the convection works. This is working. By knowing it's working, we've seen it's getting hot. It's got to be getting power, right? So let's come in line 1. Go in, and how do I get power to the convection? We got to go through the double line break relay. We go up to the convection relay, convection element, and we go out. Right? And I don't have to draw that, that's already highlighted. My Bohr element don't work. Now the question was not how so much you troubleshoot it, but by seeing this, just all you're doing is turning the oven on, and they're telling you, my broil's not working. So you have to say, well, what could it be? Well, first of all, we looked at it and says, well, the only two things left are what? What are the only two things that could be wrong if my convection is working and my broil is not?
Would either be the broiler relay or the element itself.
That's correct. It's either the broil element or the broil relay. So this is a freestanding range. Would you go to the element, or would you go to the board and test the board?
Board. Go to the board.
Go to the board. Does everybody agree, or does anybody want to go to the element?
Yeah, I would go to the board and I would check if the relay's sending out power, and then I could check continuity on the element from the board as well.
True. If you have voltage coming out of the board, out of the relay, which is going to blue, this one won't work because they drew it wrong, but we'll go ahead and connect it. and we go to here. So you have voltage coming out. Where are we going to test that voltage coming out? I'm going to clear the highlights. Where are you going to put your meter to check that?
Well, that's A2 is the relay, but is there
black wire on the relay, broil relay, and neutral on white.
anything?
Okay, give me pin locations or whatever. Like you're talking to tech line on the phone. He's gonna say, yeah, go to the white wire on the board. I see 2 white wires on the board. I see white wires here on the temperature probe. I see a white wire here. I see a white wire here. I see a white wire here. Which one are we gonna do?
J110.
J110, is that this one right here?
Yes.
Okay, so we put 1 meter lead here, and where's our other meter lead gonna go?
The out pin on broiler relay.
And I don't know what out pin.
Black wire.
It's not black, it's blue.
Black.
Oh, blue.
Black's down here.
BK is black.
Yeah, it could be black, but in this case I got BK, so it's blue. So yes, that's correct. I have 120 volts there. What do I do, guys?
You have 120 there?
I have 120 there.
So you check
Check the
continuity.
element resistance of the element.
You're gonna go to the element, or you're gonna.
From there, you can check for an open, right, on ohms?
So you go from blue to white. You unplug the power and you check continuity, and your meter says infinity.
Then you get a bad element.
So you're gonna order the customer an element. Well, I mean, it's a bad element, right?
That would make sense, but I mean, do you want to verify it by like tearing everything apart and spending another hour of your life there, or do you want to?
Well, it's a freestanding range. Is it an hour of your life? You already got the top back panel. You're at the board. What if the wire burned off the element?
Right. You got to look. Yeah.
Yes. A continuity test would tell you no reading, but you can't always rule out wires, especially on heating elements and stuff. You know it. So you'd have to make a second trip. Yeah, if you came back and saw the burnt wire, you'd fix it the second time around. But now you've gone to the customer's house twice for a burnt wire, and it's going to cost you more money to do that.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so that's a little bit about this. I got a lot to cover. We've gone half through the class, and I haven't got to the refrigerator. I hope I can get that far. Let's go back to the stove diagram that I had here. And now let's take a look at the top half of this. Oh wait, this isn't the one we were on, right? We were on this one, right? Yeah, okay. So this here is the user interface, right? Now I want you to look at all 4 of these components below it. What can you tell me technical wise about any of them?
A multi-point spark module.
The MDL? Uh-oh, we gotta find out what MDL is. I don't even know what it is off the top of my head, but we'll get to that.
Motor door lock.
Motor door lock switch. Okay, very good. Look at the plug. Look at the plugs on all of them. Don't look at the loads themselves. What do you see there?
It's DC.
It's DC. How do you know it's DC?
With ground.
There's ground on every one of them plugs. That's not AC volt. AC volt's on the left-hand side.
Right.
Now we see this plug told you 13 volts DC up here, right? And that's going to your user interface. So if your user interface didn't light up, okay, so that has the clock on it and everything, right? You could check this pin 4 and 1 for 13 volts, and if you had it, you knew the problem was your user interface, right? If you didn't have it, your board's not telling your user interface to light up. Most stoves you can't check because you don't know what wire or what pin or whatever to check it, but that's it. So yes, these are all low voltage components, and when you look at them on the board, you're also going to see that the wires are much smaller wires when it's low voltage. On most appliances, they're not going to use these heavy gauge wires for low voltage. They can save money by smaller wires, so they're going to use smaller wires for different things. Why do we have a tachometer on it? This is a stove, right? What's a tachometer do? You have one in your car. It measures your speed and rotation, right? So what does a tachometer on the stove do? Measures how fast you cook your chicken?
Fans?
Fans or the convection fan? Do we have a convection fan?
Yeah. There is a convection fan and a cooling fan.
Yeah, I don't think we would monitor the cooling fan, but the convection fan, it could be, it could run different speeds for different settings in the programmings, right? If you want to like sear or air fry, we're going to go real heavy on the fan, because isn't air fry the same as convection baking? It's a fan motor. So this oven might have that feature. And a tachometer would, how's the board going to monitor how fast the convection fans run? They could have a variable speed fan, and it could be run by a tachometer.
So isn't that kind of old technology though?
Well, on the error sheet, it mentions about the cooling fan speed low or high error. So I think that tachometer is measuring the cooling fan, because it has a multi-speed cooling fan.
Ah, see, so very good. And so what he's talking about there was, okay, so where was that? Okay, it was below here. Which error was that?
It's F45 and F46.
F45 and F46. Let me zoom in a little bit. 45, 46. I see 45, 46. Okay, cooling fans.
F45, and then
Confirm tachometer.
possibly suggestion number 2 confirms the tachometer.
Very good. And I'm glad you did that, because remember, I haven't read everything on this diagram, but I looked at it, and knowing how things work, I said, oh, that's got to be part of the convection fan, not the cooling fan. Just knowing how things work. But yes, if you didn't know, go into the tech sheet information and it might come up there, and that was very good that you did that.
But also on the schematic, there's an indication, or no? Is there?
It just says tachometer, and they're not touching each other on the diagram,
Right.
and there's no reference that one to the other, except for here, and that would be the answer. I think like that. Going back to the fryer that I got videos on. Next week I'm gonna post the final. We had to do a lot more. I'll tell you guys this: if you watch the videos on the fryer, there's more problems than the broken wire. I wanted to see if anybody actually noticed it in the video. Something visual you need to notice. So we had to go back and fix it a little bit more, but we were able to fix that fryer with about less than $7 in butt connectors to repair a couple of wires. But wait till you see what the final part of the video is going to be. I'm sorry to go off, but the reason why I brought up the fryer is as I was lecturing, and I talked about it I think in the first video, I looked down in it and saw these 2 probes where the oil goes, and I said, oh, one's probably temperature, and I'm assuming the other one's probably a high limit safety. We went back to the class and read the diagram, and guess what? One was the high limit safety and one was the operating thermostat. So you have to not only know the parts, but finding these answers here. I do this all the time. New product comes out all the time, and I have to go back to the manual to find out what it is. So where's MDL? I see MDL here, but where does it say MDL and what MDL is?
Does the motor door lock during self-clean?
Where are you reading that?
Oh, I'm just spewing off the top of my head.
Okay, so
That's what the motor door lock is for, right?
yes, but I'm saying where do you get the acronym MDL?
Well, like the man suggested, I also, yeah. What else?
To the left of the diagram.
Where?
In the,
Okay, to the right of the diagram?
in that circuit chart, yeah.
J1
Under
to
the
the left.
control board.
Oh, I just pushed to the right and it just
Just
jumped
got
the
it.
page. I apologize.
There.
Where
Yeah,
J1 to the left?
Circuit analysis matrix deal has it written under
Okay.
there, right?
Diagram where the J1 connector is to the left.
Okay, here's a J1, and you're saying to the left of that?
There it is, up on the top. You can
MDL, motor door latch. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I didn't know MDL meant that. Okay, well, let's take a look at one other thing here. RTD scale. What is this, guys?
Sensor. Temperature
Okay.
sensor.
I'm gonna minimize this just for a minute because I have some stuff here I want you to see. Have you ever changed an oven sensor, an oven temperature probe? Anybody ever seen them?
Yeah, the things that you.
They've been around since electronic controlled ovens been around like the 90s. I remember working on them, and F3 has been a common failure for one of these oven sensors to fail. What is the resistance that you're supposed to get when you test these oven sensors? Does anybody know what?
Is that the standard like 1040 at room temperature or something?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 1040 room temperature. Can you find that information for me on the chart that I have on the screen?
Right there it says 75, 1091 ohms.
75, 1000, not 191. So it's usually about 1050 to 1100 ohms at room temperature. It's been that way since the 90s, right? Look at the chart on the right.
They don't give you room temperature unless it's a really cold room.
Well, they are giving you the temperature. It's on the left hand. Well, yeah, they are giving you
No, they're
77.
not giving you room temperature, I'm saying on that.
Okay, but look at the resistances, Rudy.
Oh yeah, way
What-
lower. Way lower, yeah.
It's closer to 2 ohms now.
That 1080 is at almost 600 degrees, right?
1060s at, at about, 1080 is about 600 degrees, right? You averaged it out. Very good.
Yeah.
So, guess what?
They changed.
Frigidaire changed the resistance values of their oven thermistors or their oven sensors. It's on the chart. I'll show you the two different diagrams. They're both Frigidaire. You look at the control board. The control board looks very, very similar. And one's an electric oven, one's this gas oven. But that's not why the resistance has changed. Frigidaire and Whirlpool come to my school, and they do training for technicians in the field at my school. And the guy said last year, we changed our oven sensors, so don't go by that 1050 ohms. You better look at the tech sheet or the schematic and know whether do I have the old one or the new one. Because if you're used to the average temperature of 75 degrees being 1050 ohms, well, 1050 is here now, and that's almost 600 degrees. So they're not interchangeable either. You might pick one up and say, it's an oven sensor, fits right in. It's not going to work.
Well, why is this chart on the left even here? Because all we're interested in is the RTD scale to check the RTD in the oven, right? So what's this one on the left? Why is it even here?
Well, one of them is from one diagram and one of them is from another, from the old oven and one from the new oven. And that's what I'm going to show you here.
Yeah.
Remember,
Covering different models.
this one here has the new resistance on it, right? Range
Yeah.
PDF. I'm sorry I didn't send you guys this because
I thought that was from the tech sheet. I thought they were trying to confuse it.
this is from the tech sheet here, but
That is.
from this tech sheet here on this stove, another Frigidaire stove,
Mm,
oops,
they're like either or. It could be this or it could be that.
no, this is a different stove. This is an older model.
Yeah.
This is an older model, but you have to go to the tech sheet to know this information.
Right.
Okay? So, look, motor door lock mechanism, but it's motor door latch, not motor door lock. So, okay, so let's take a look at the control board for a minute now. And let's look at this information. I think I have it in my my other program where I can note on it and stuff like that. Let me see. Yeah, here we go, right here. So, this is the board. Can you identify just by looking at that picture anything about the board, anything that you could just look at and say, oh, that's what this is what that is, and identifying just the parts by looking at it. I'll point one out just for the heck of it. There's a transformer there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the board gets 120 coming in, but it's got to drop the voltage. Plus we have DC circuits, so we also have to lower the voltage for that too, right?
All the circular stuff with the backwards K in it, those are capacitor or Ks or whatever. Those are usually
The
capacitors, right?
Yeah. Let's go up to the top of the board there. All those things from the top all the way around to the left.
So K3 is obviously a relay because we looked at that before, right?
K3?
Yeah, at the top of the board.
I'm looking for K3. I don't see K3.
On the top left.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
That's that relay.
Well, this.
Talked about before.
Okay, so then we got K4, K1, K2. Those are relays, right?
Right.
Let's just take a look at K2. I don't want to look at the diagram. I want to look at the relay. What's going on the relay?
It's too small. I can't see.
Okay, I'll zoom in on it. Hold on a second.
Boreal element. It's a boreal element.
Okay, wait. Let me do this because I also want to sort of rephrase my question just a little bit.
It's like L1.
Hold on, Rudy.
Hmm.
Okay. Look at K2, right? Rudy, I was working on this stove and I was, putting the wires on and everything, and I have this black and this red wire. This is a 240 volt stove, but I also have this third wire. I don't remember the color, but where do I put these three wires?
Well, L1 and K2.
So what does that mean right there? What you just said, L1, K2.
Well, it's showing that lower connector where the arrow is. It says L1.
So what does that mean? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Well, you said where do you connect the wires, right?
Oh, so what wire goes there?
It's L1.
What wire goes there?
L1, K2 is the black wire that's the
Okay.
line coming into the system.
So that's line 1, black coming in.
And then the boiler element terminal just above it.
Okay, and that just,
Wire coming out.
I'll put green. I don't know what color it was.
Yeah, that's the blue wire.
Okay, and then well, I'll make it blue then. We'll do it correct. So what? I also had a red wire too. I didn't know where to put that one because I had three wires, but I meant to put blue. Look at that. I said red. Sorry. So I had a red wire too, but does it go on this relay?
No.
No, I don't see no red connecting to that relay. So what does connect to the
Probably that
relay?
L2.
And where's that?
That would be my guess on K1.
On K1. So again, now you're using the terminology L2 on K1. If I walked up to you, Rudy, from day one, you never even looked at an appliance before in your life, said, Rudy, I want you to put line 1 on K2, and I want you to put L2, I want you to put the red on K2, or K1, or whatever. And you're like, what the hell are you saying? L2, K1, K2, K3, whatever. What does that mean? And again, starting from what we did at the beginning, I'm not trying to teach you to troubleshoot how the element don't work. But if you don't know the parts and the terminology, it's like going to a doctor and he's talking about an operation and I got the idea to cut the guy open, but what do I do next? And he's talking to you like he's reading from the book of the doctors. It's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So when you look at these boards, we got relays here, and even these are individual relays. Well, what do they control? Convection fan, fan low speed, fan high speed, the lamp, the motor, door latch, MDL, the convection fan high, and the neutral that comes into the whole board. So, we need to look at these diagrams and we need to know what these parts are. So these relays here are doing this work here. These relays are controlling these components. So when you're,
for example, like we also would have to assume there's some data going from the tachometer over to where the cooling fan is controlled, but that's like a implicit thing that they don't show us because.
Well, right here, this is,
No.
from what I know about computers, this is most likely like the processor. Like when you're working on a,
the one above it?
when you're,
It's not that rectangular one above it?
well, I'm going to explain to you what that is. That's probably a ROM chip.
Yeah.
Okay, the difference is ROM chips are like your jump drives. They have the program. So when you tell it to bake at 350 for 30 minutes, this here is taking that information and telling the parts what to do.
Okay.
But it goes through here, which is the processor that makes it happen.
Right, okay.
So it takes the program that's on here and it thinks about it and it says, okay, turn this relay on and turn that relay on, and how fast are we going? Oh wait, slow this one down, and that's all happening by this processor on the board. Same thing like your home computer.
Right. So
Okay.
the processor is doing the thinking, the ROM chip is executing the orders. It doesn't have the capability to
Well,
process information.
it would be like you, Rudy, trying to think about an appliance but never ever seen an appliance before in your life. You didn't have the information for your brain to think it. So, okay, so let's clear this up for a second. Alright, so how we doing so far, guys? Are you guys like hanging in there? And
It's all good.
okay,
I'm learning something, so that's good.
okay, so let's look at this here. What is this? By the way, I'm putting this video in the how to read wiring diagrams page. You guys' faces won't be on it because I'm only recording the screen that you see. So
That's called a circuit analysis matrix. I'm not sure exactly what it's.
Well, what does it say on the very top before the brackets?
EOC relay,
Okay, do you know what EOC is? Another acronym.
electronic oven control.
Very good. So this is all those relays that we just talked about, the K3, the K1, that's these here. They're not telling you the K3, K1, but they're telling you L1 to bake here, right? Right here says that this one, this one is L1 to bake. So that relay is energized if I'm baking, if I'm doing convection, and I'm self-cleaning.
So it tells us what should be live whenever a certain operation is happening.
Like cycling, farm truck.
Yeah, now the X means that it's open or closed, right? Look, notes, X means the circuit contact's closed. But if you look, this X is not just a plain X. It has an asterisk next to it. And it said X with an asterisk that says during preheat.
Right.
Okay? Or cycles as needed. That's not it. During preheat, I think those are numbers. Probably, let me go back to the actual Adobe document, because when I zoom in on a screenshot, it's not clear. I apologize. Which one of these diagrams? I think it's this one here. Was it this one? No, it was the other one. Let me go to this one here. Okay, here we go. I can zoom on this and it's clear, guys. See, these are asterisks and those are numbers, okay? So going back to it, this is what's telling you what relays are on when the customer chooses bake, broil, self-clean, or whatever. So if I'm going to broil, look at the chart, how many relays and what relay, but I want you to tell me the relay by the K number. So I want you to look at it, try to figure out what information they're giving you there, and tell me which relay on the board it is. Now if I bring the diagram here,
Is it K2?
that is correct. How did you come up with that?
Because the when you brawl, it only have the X. It only have one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the X or the asterisk, but it's the only X that's in that row. Do you see that?
Yeah.
All the others in that row are grayed out. So the only one that is on right now is that X. But if we look up here, what does it say? It's saying L1 to broil there, right? So they're saying if you put it in broil, this is the only one that's closed. None of these are closed here. And this is what is closed. And then down here is telling you what that X means. That makes sense? So if we went here, we went up and said L1 to broil. If you look at K2, that's L1 to broil. And that is the relay that they are talking about. They're saying that relay is a relay that's on in that cycle. That's the only relay that stove is using.
So Richard, I have a question. And I'm
Sure.
assuming that this particular oven, the bake element is hidden. It's not an exposed bake element.
I think it is a hidden bake element. Again, I just pulled the diagrams off of the internet.
Because on the EOC relays chart, it shows that the bake broiler and the convection runs at the same time on bake. Typically that's only in preheat when it's doing that, or?
Yeah,
I imagine if
well, the asterisk here says cycles as needed, not for preheat. Preheat's a number one. I couldn't see it before in the other one, the screenshot, because it was blurry. So if it has a 1, that means it's only on during preheat. If we're doing bake here, but if it has a 1, it comes on just to help get the oven up to temp. And once it's done and got to temp, like if a customer's going to cook at convection bake at 375. Oh wait, no, we're in bake. That's convection fan. This one here is cycles as needed. So in the bake cycle, why do we put a broil bin on?
So that it preheats quicker?
Actually,
Is it not during preheat, or is it when it's actually baking, when preheat's already reached?
the convection fan is the only thing on during preheat. The bake and broil will cycle on and off the whole time you're cooking.
So maintain the
To get the average temperature.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know if you guys can see me, but let's say I have a cookie sheet. Let's say my cell phone's a cookie sheet, right? Can you guys see me in the screen there?
Yeah.
Okay, so cell phone's a cookie sheet, and I'm going to bake a cake right on top of it. If I just turn on a bake element, what happens? Heat rises, hits the pan, and flows out and around. So your pan gets extremely hot, but the top of your cake doesn't get that heat. It gets what we call the actual oven temperature heat, but the pan's still getting hot because it's getting that heat from the bottom. So what they do is they cycle it off and put on the broil just for a little bit and then turn it back off to try to make sure that the top and the bottom are cooking so that the bottom of your cake don't burn while the top is undercooked.
Isn't the main reason that they're putting that asterisk to remind you, that it cycles as needed? Because if you're checking for voltage and that's cycled off, then you're like, oh no, it's not getting voltage or something like that, and to not freak out. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also so hey, if I'm in this cycle, that's supposed to be running, so that's where to make your test. What I'd like you guys to do after we've had this class, if you're at home, go to your oven, put it on 350, press start. Listen. You'll hear the relays on your board click just like that. And if you put it on bake, 99% of them cycle broil on and off. You'll hear after 30 seconds, a minute, whatever, you'll hear a click. And then another click where the broil's coming on and then going back off. Or you might even hear a double click and that's like the bake going off and the broil coming on, or the broil going off and the bake coming on. But listen for those relays. Listen for the cycling. Just like when I do my sealed system, my refrigeration, I talk about, put your hand on a condenser, feel the coil. I run machines. I listen. I know what's machine doing just by listening to those clicks and sounds. Then I go and make my tests.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So again, the asterisks they are always cycling on and off. The straight X, it's on or it's off. And it's funny, they put O for open, but yet the chart has no O's. And then they have the X1, and that means it's only during preheat. So with the convection fan is always on in convection bake, and it's still cycling between the elements. But in bake itself, the convection fan will come on during preheat, get the oven to temperature. And so we want to tell customers, if a customer calls you out and says, hey, I'm cooking my cake, and it's overcooking, it's burning my cake. Ma'am, did you wait for it to notify you that it got to temperature at 350? Or did you just put it in and press start? And that fan's running, preheating, trying to get that thing as hot as we can, fast as we can, so she can bake right away. And she exposed that cake to all that heat and stuff. So again, knowing how it operates is the only way you're going to know how to troubleshoot it. And the idea behind my class here and my future classes is we just need to break it down into little things. We cannot sit there and talk about this diagram in one day and walk away and know everything about it. But we need...
Do you feel like customers, they get kind of resentful or defensive when you start bringing up the proper usage of the appliance and stuff like that? Like, you're like, well, did you put the cake in too early? And then they're like, oh,
Rudy.
Or something like with dryer vents and stuff, and their dryer vents completely full of crap, and it keeps failing and burning up, and you're like, well, you got to fix your vent. And they're like, you're trying to upsell me.
I'll make this quick. I graduated high school at 17, went to work for Sears. The second day I was there, I had my own truck. I was a 17-year-old kid working for Sears, going to people's houses. Yeah. I went to a lady's house because, if you could see the screen again, she had multiple pans, so one was over another. So the bottom one was burning, and the top one wasn't cooking. And she was using different color pans. One was a dark and one was a light color pan. And I told her, ma'am, this, and that. And she says, son, and 17 years old kid, I was 125 pounds. She says, I've been cooking since before you were born. But I told her, ma'am, I went to school and got certified to do this. I understand. I'm sure you're a great cook, but, just try and do this one time for me and see how well that works. And so, I didn't make her feel like she was wrong.
Yeah.
But I had to sort of put her down and say, hey, listen what I'm telling you. But there are people like that. But anyways, let's get back to the diagram, because we're all here for that. And not my, I could go on and on with stories. So, this has all kinds of failures and error codes. This is a gas stove top. If we look over here, I'm just going to go over briefly because I'm not going to really talk about much about gas today. But we got a spark module here. What could you tell me how this circuit works?
When you turn on the switch, it sends voltage to, well, in this case, right, all the burners. It's into the electrodes.
Okay, so if you were going to check this, you go to a customer's house, and the lady says, my right rear switch, this one right here, my right rear switch, when I turn it on, it never lights the burner. All the others work. I'm not going to go into more detail. You can ask questions, but what do we do first?
Light the right rear switch and look and see if you see the arc. Can you see this electrode sparking?
And listen. You can hear it.
And listen, yeah.
Okay, but hey.
It'll all be clicking. You'll be hearing clicking all over the place, right?
That's correct. Does each burner have its own electrode, or is it like some stoves where the front and rear share an electrode?
All of them have their own electrode, but they all spark at the same time.
That is correct. Very good. So they both spark at the same time. How do you know that? You're looking at these lines. How do you know that?
Because on the right side, where it has the W, the white wires, all of them simultaneously go out to each electrode, and that means they all feed at the same time. So
Well, that's okay, Daniel, but look at the other way at all the switches, the left front switch, the left rear switch, and so forth. There's only two wires, white, which is neutral, and red, which is blind 1 coming in. The board doesn't know which one of those switches you're turning on. It's just getting 120 volts. You could just put 120 at the red and white on this plug right here on the board, and they all start sparking. But it doesn't know I'm just turning on the right front. The only thing that knows I'm turning on the right front is while I'm turning the dial and that switch is closing, I'm also turning a mechanical valve to let gas just to that burner. But power coming in here, it has no way of knowing which one of the switches I close. Those are all wired in parallel, so it doesn't matter which one I close, the power is going to go to that same pin, so therefore all of these here are going to come out. Now notice this. What's important about this here?
The ground wire on the spark module is optional.
It is optional, but there's even more important than that.
Well, in order for the spark, forget it. I'm thinking of something else.
Spark modules have to be grounded. Now in this case, it may have a wire that comes off the module that goes to a screw which is grounded. But next time you ever work on a gas stove, look at the screws that hold the module to the frame of the machine. That the screw will go through a metal plate and will ground it through a metal plate, not have an extra wire. It has to be grounded. If you had this module hanging by the wires and not mounted on the stove and you're testing it, it's not going to spark. Look at all the electrodes here. What do we have on the other side? See, the spark's coming from the module, but it has to jump through the air to ground. And it needs to go back to the spark module through ground of the machine to work. So if you had that module, let's say the plastic cracked and it was hanging off, and that screw wasn't holding it down anymore, it's not going to work and none of the burners will light. It has to be grounded.
And if it's not grounded properly, I'm just telling you this because I've learned this recently, is that the spark module won't stop clicking because it won't detect the flame because of this whole flame rectification, the way that it reads the electricity. The way the flame conducts electricity.
Yes, in that instance, on some of these, when you turn the dial, this switch stays closed all the time, so voltage is always here. And then the flame, when it goes between the electrode and ground, the flame actually conducts the current to ground, and the module stops working at that point. Like, this board sees that, and it says stop sparking, unless another one is asking for it.
So are these reignition systems, right? Like if for some reason the gas is interrupted and then it reignites.
Exactly. If the flame blows out, it no longer sees that path to ground, and it starts the sparking again to relight it, so that gas isn't always. And this is the surface. You don't see it that often on the surface, but ones who have individual igniters like that, that is to ensure that the customer didn't turn it on and walk away and gas is just pouring into the air. It's trying to get that thing lit. I mean, it won't shut it off, but...
And so since the ground is through the burner or whatever, it can also be interrupted by a buildup, like if you spill something thick on it or something like that, right?
That's correct.
So that can interrupt the circuit. So it can be something as simple as they need to clean their burner head or whatever. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if that switch wasn't working when you go to turn on the right rear burner, if that switch is not sending a signal where all the other switches are, you have to replace the whole harness that comes with all the switches together. Is that right?
Depending on the brand, but yeah, in some brands they're all daisy chained together, so it's all one part number.
Design on this one here, does it show that they're daisy chained?
It looks like it, but it could also be that way also because of the way it's schematic. They're parallel written, but on Frigidaire they do that a lot where they're all connected together as a single part. But I've worked on quite a few that each one had two little wires that plugged into each switch separately, and you could take one switch out and replace it separately. What if a customer called you out to their house and said, hey, this thing's like sparking all the time. I haven't used this stove in 2 days and it's still clicking.
That switch is
The spark switch is typically shorted. A lot of times they have too much water or soap or something in the switch. And once it dries out, then it stops clicking. I had that happen one quite a lot where cleaning ladies pour water on it to clean it off, and the water goes down into the switch and it doesn't stop sparking until it dries out.
Yeah, you get a little hair dryer or something and blow it in there, and that gets it fixed usually. But yes, that is exactly what happens, is that even on the cooktop ones, the customers are cleaning it and they got real wet soapy sponges. They're lucky they don't go shocked. And the water gets down into that switch and it completes a circuit, and the switch it starts sparking. And the first thing I ask is, did you clean this? What's the last thing you did? You cleaned it? No, they had this problem, you know? So guys, it's 1 o'clock. I didn't even get finished with the stoves. I still have those refrigerator diagrams. Maybe next class, I'm just going to continue up with this and then go into the refrigerator diagrams and point them out. I don't want to rush it, and I don't want to make the classes too long, because after a while you can only absorb so much. I need you guys to go back and look at these diagrams. Try practicing tracing circuits like I did the elements, and try to do each how does the broil get power? How does the convection get power? How does this work? Where is the path that it goes through? And practice that. What I did is in classes we use those. Remember back in the day when in school the teacher had that plastic sheet that they projected to the board, and they had those clear sheets. You can get those clear sheets, lay them on top of your diagram on a clipboard, and get what they call dry erase markers, and you can trace the circuits over and over again, practicing circuit tracing on that sheet without having to waste paper and everything. So I highly recommend doing that as far as practicing the circuits. And trust me, this is something that's going to take time. And like I said, I'm working on the written part of it for you guys. And I started uploading to the website, but I haven't turned it on yet. I want to make sure it's a little bit more cleaner and more easier to flow through. But the first chapter, hopefully by about a week or so, the first chapter will be up. And if you guys are interested, check it out. For all of our paid members, you'll have access to that under TMM self-study. Okay? And don't forget to check out the sealed system one. If you have any questions, the sealed system one, I know some links aren't working, but there are ways to get around through the whole site. I moved it over, but I haven't been able to make that live because it's going to cost a couple $1,000s for me to invest in that, and I want to write everything first before I turn that on. So everybody have any questions or anything that we want to go over before we break for today?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
On the relay board, K3 relay, it's depicted differently than K1, K2, or K4. And the same thing on the diagram. Is it a different relay, or?
Let me see something. K1, K2, K4. What are you asking me is different?
K3. K3 relay is drawn differently. Is it a different type of relay? It doesn't show any contacts.
Well, K3 is here, and it's a smaller relay because it's not doing any heating elements. What is it doing?
Gas.
Yeah, it's doing the gas igniter and safety valve, which is like 3 amp circuit. So these relays here are bigger. Just like here, you don't see those other relays for the fan and everything, and that was the K5, 6, I think, or something, What relays was that? I got to go back to the.
K5 through K9.
Yeah, these up here, K5 to K9. If you look, oh jeez, I'm trying 2 different programs here, and I'm going too fast. So K5 to K9 is here. They're not drawing them. You see that? So the K3 is here, and the K5 to K9. They just didn't draw them on the diagram. You don't need that, but you need to know. Okay, well, if I'm looking at just this, and I'm not seeing that relay drawing, how do I do this? And I tell you what, next class, that'll be the topic up for discussion, and I'll continue with this in the next class. How about that?
Okay, cool.
All right, everyone. Keep an eye out for our videos and appreciate it. Y'all have a great one.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.